I think you can hear them directly from the source. You got to ask the family about the day Rosamond caused a two-car accident in her own driveway with a new Cadillac. You just got to hear that story. You got to ask about Gigi, the wayward poodle. You need to know that she loved animals, but not that much. You got to hear the story. You got to hear about Frank asking her out to dinner and having her get dressed up to the nines so that he could take her to Crystal Burgers. You know, these are stories. I'm not going to tell them. The warmth of her memory, it just overwhelms your sense of loss. The knowledge of her faith, that gives rise to hope that there's a comfort beyond the meager boundaries of our imagination. It is a good morning, even if the heart does occasionally tug. For me, it's a special morning in a different way, a wonderful way. I am honored to stand here and say good morning on Rosamond's behalf. I am humbled that she invited me to share a goodbye and to add a brief coda to that magnificent symphony of joy that she shared with us. I wish I could tell you that Rosamond shared the thoughts that she wanted me to convey to you today, but she did not. Now, Clyde, on the other hand, he shared his thoughts about his eulogy with me in detail, and he made absolutely certain that in asking me to give his eulogy that I stay on message. He provided written instructions and included all the highlights he wanted stressed, and to no surprise, most of those highlights were about Rosamond. Now, when Rosamond handed me Clyde's instructions, she made it clear that she was proud of him for being so well organized. And I kind of hoped that she would follow his example and provide me with similar instructions, or at least to give me some hint or idea about what she wanted me to say. I asked her over and over. I pleaded. But Rosamond said in no uncertain terms that participating in any way in the composition of your own eulogy would not be ladylike. The most I ever got out of her was, make it good. Now, can you imagine how surprised I was then to find out that Kathy got Rosamond to write her own obituary? I couldn't get a hint from Rosamond, and Kathy got a whole written obituary. Now, at first reading, the obituary doesn't tell us much, particularly when we all know there was so much to tell. But in between the lines that Rosamond wrote, there is a story. It is a story of a rich and wonderful life. To be sure, a life that was touched by tragedy, but a life that was blessed. As modest as she was in what she wrote, Rosamond couldn't hide the one thing that dominated her life and reflected the depth of her character, and that one thing was love. Rosamond understood love. She gave it in abundance. She received it in abundance. She loved life. She loved her family, her friends. Rosamond was in love all of the time and for all the right reasons. Rosamond's brothers, Bobby and Doug, they're with us today. It's my understanding that brother Archie is ill and couldn't be here. But if you asked the brothers, They will tell you that they could remember that 17-year-old sister who fell in love with Grady. They probably remember how funny Grady could be with his Jonathan Winters looks and sometimes outrageous personality. They know how generous and hardworking he was, and how much he loved his family, and how much he loved Rosamond. And I'm sure that Bobby and Doug and Archie can also tell you about the pain that that family suffered when Grady died at 54, and the pain that Rosamond suffered, and how they felt when they lost their nephew, Michael, and the devastating loss of a son to Rosamond, and that impact. But just as importantly, all of the family can tell you that love can overcome pain. Love can blunt tragedy. This family got to witness a little girl grow up to become an elegant lady. This family got to see how that elegant lady, the daughter of a Baptist evangelical minister, tough to believe, true, brought 3 wonderful people into this world, and how Mike, the son she was to lose, so adored her that he surreptitiously registered her in the Mrs. Alabama contest and single-handedly led a campaign that brought her all the way to the finals. Rosamond Hemphill knew love. The love of her children, of her husband, her family, her friends, and her neighbors. But Rosamond Hemphill was just the start. Rosamond King experienced a phoenix of love. It's right there between the lines she wrote in the obituary. To her children, Grady and Kathy, she added a new son, Lanny. I can't believe how good you look before you turn gray, or how much you look like your father. And then a son and 2 daughters, acquired through love, Frank and Pat and Jan. From their love came the grandchildren, and a busload of great-grandchildren. I think it was numbered 17, but I'm certain that that's just a start. That happens in families where you're supposed to always knock. And then there was that truly great love, the one that most of us here today were witness to. Lord knows that Rosamond loved Clyde King, and that Clyde King loved Rosamond. They were a living example to every couple in love, to every partnership made from love, to every human being made joyful by love, that you could have a goal, and that love as a goal was in and of itself enough. Over the more than a quarter of a century that Rosamond and I were friends, it's a long time, I never approached her once. I never began a conversation with her once. I was never in her presence without telling her specifically, "You are the most beautiful woman I have ever met." Never once. It was a beauty at every level. It was a beauty that she radiated by enjoying life, by being queen of the ball for Dominic Yu, for being a partner in bridge with Barbara Clements, for being and having friends, extraordinarily friends, like Joan Weldon, for being a sardine among sardines, for being a mother, a grandmother, a wife, a partner, for everything. It was a beauty that radiates from the joy of making a contribution, the joy of helping found the Bay Point Women's Club, of serving on its board of governors. She was an apostle for Bay Point. Now here, that brings me to pause a moment and get just a little bit off message. During the 3 decades I served as Bay Point's managing partner, I met a lot of fine neighbors. There was not a single day in all those years when I didn't realize and appreciate that there was somebody out there trying to make Bay Point a better place to live. For years, my office was on the 2nd floor of the old clubhouse. Many people who actively worked to make Bay Point better stopped by that office to share their ideas, to tell me what I was doing wrong, to request money for one charity or another. The steep steps that led to my office served as an early warning system. Generally, I knew when someone was on the stairs. And after a while, I got so good that I could tell who it was. I knew from his huffing and puffing when Jack Taylor was coming up the stairs. Wallace Hartsfield, who had bad knees, he put one foot on the first stair and just bark out, "Meet you in the lounge." Never came up. If someone was whistling, it was probably Sid Gould. I had bounders, crawlers, hummers, mutterers, coughers, and then there was Rosamond. Rosamond kind of just drifted up, as if she was riding on the silent wings of some gentle breeze. She never gave me a warning. She just more or less appeared, almost like an apparition standing in front of my desk. And of course, I always knew what the visit was about. It was going to be about the Women's Club, or the Bay Medical Center Foundation, or the Girls Club, or something else that she cared about. There are few people I have met in my life who can hold a philanthropic candle to Rosamond King. Not to that lady who drifted in my office at the old clubhouse. Her visits were marvelous. And I'd like to give you just one example. One day, she stopped by just for a cup of coffee. Now, I didn't believe that. But while there, she got around to asking if I would contribute a stuffed Santa Claus to the Bay Point Women's Club. She explained that Santa Claus would be used in decorating the main entrance, which at the time was our only entrance. Well, since I knew I'd eventually have to say yes, I just agreed right away, and I rose to walk her to the door. She didn't budge. Gave her coffee one passing stir, offered the thanks of the Women's Club, and told me how lovely Santa was going to look in his new sleigh. I foolishly asked, "What sleigh?" "Well, why, the one you're going to make for us." Okay. By the time that beautiful friend went down those steep stairs, she had in hand commitments for a stuffed Santa,